Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. Doodle Bible School. See how smooth that was there? School. Wasn't all that smooth, was it? Anyhow, here we are. I'm with you, you're with me, we're together. He. Thanks for being here. Doodle Bible School. You ready to go after this? As you know, we're navigating numbers with our man Moses. Moses is on his way to the promised land. And he says, look at there, I'm on my way to the promised land. And so as we navigate numbers, we're going to pause for a moment and we're going to look at chapter 30. We actually paused here 2 chapters ago, didn't we? We talked 2 chapters about, let's see, what was it? Offerings. And now we're going to talk an entire chapter about vows that you make, promises that you make. Kind of interesting chapter. All right, here we go. Segment number 1. We need to do the doodle. So everybody get your doodle later, get your doodle-a-dee, and you can draw along with me. Man, I am ringing it up today, aren't I? I tell you what, I got the whole thing going. All right, guys, by way of a review, let us notice what we've got here. Chapter 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. It's like it just can't get there. It's getting slower and slower. 30. Here we go. Vows. A vow is basically a promise, okay? Basically a promise. So what we're going to do here is I need to do this first because I'm not good at that at all. Okay, there we go. I had to do it backwards. So I had to do it frontwards because I can't do it backwards. All right, you guys, you see your 3 here? All right, here's your 3. We'll make it darker, okay? Here's your 3. Very good. You got that? All right, you got your 3, right? Now, what we do with our 3 then is inside the word bubble, we're going to write I promise. I promise. Can you guys do that? I promise. Now, this over here, I love it when he keeps it simple. This over here is just a big smiley face. And make this dark on the outside because that's our 0, right? So there you go. You got a 30. I promise. And that's supposed to be, see, that's supposed to be a word bubble that's coming out of it. I should have put him up here higher so that his face was over here because I'm not going to erase it. But anyhow, he's saying, I promise. Okay? So there you go. That's how you remember chapter 30 of Numbers. I promise. Or vows that are going to be made. So, if I were to ask upon you this question, which are certainly 2 questions, what is the theme of Numbers chapter 30? Vows, or I promise. And can you doodle the picture? Yes, it's right there. Can't you see it? Let's be silly. First joke of the morning, we're going to go with Big-Eyed Bob. I just noticed Big-Eyed Bob, he's got a problem here. He kind of spits whenever he sticks his tongue out. That's not good. Why did the mama dog give the baby dog mustard when he had a fever? Oh, dear. Gabriel's had a fever just last night. He had a fever. I guess Cindy should have given him mustard. I don't know. Why did the mama dog give the baby dog mustard when he had a fever? I'll tell you why. Because it is the best thing for a hot dog. Do you put mustard on your hot dogs? Me either. Well, yeah, I guess I do. I don't like hot dogs. We're just going to do confessional for a moment. I don't like hot dogs. So if I'm going to eat a hot dog, I'm going to put everything I can. I put ketchup, I put mustard, I put relish, I put whatever to cover up the taste of the hot dog. Did you see the guy I think it was just yesterday or Friday or whatever, he won the hot dog eating contest again. Yeah, 70 hot dogs, I believe, in a 10-minute period or something like that. Can you even believe it? Anyhow, that's our joke for the day. Actually, we've got more. Stay with me. Segment number 2. In the second segment, we make a memory. We get our little brain out and we start lifting weights. We say, okay, what can I do to get this thought to stay in my brain, to get this memory verse in my brain? Well, I'm going to give you 2 techniques. I know you're saying, Sonny, that's another long verse. But really, what I did is I broke it into small little phrases. And so it's not quite as long as you think it is, all right? But verse 2 of chapter 30 says this. If a man, see, that's that. If a man, if a man, if a man, if a man, if a man. There, we've done 5 times. See, it's just really little stuff. Vows a vow. If a man vows a vow, 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 if a man vows a vow. See what we did there? We've already got the first 2 lines already stuck right in the old head. If a man vows a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. Everything that comes out of his mouth, if he said, I'm going to do it, you best do it. If you make a vow, if it's a pledge that you make, and notice up here the 3rd line, if a man vows a vow to the Lord. See, that's a very important phrase, to the Lord. If you're making a vow specifically, if you're making a vow to God, you don't want to break that one. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you can't remember it that way, you can always leave some blanks. If a man vows a vow to the Lord. See, I've already got the first line, first 3 lines. If a man vows a vow, that's not too bad, really. You know, that's what we ought to do every week. Maybe we ought to make up a song. If a man vows a vow to the Lord. If a man vows a vow to the Lord. No, I'm not very good at singing, but I am silly. Does that count for anything? So there you go, folks. If you want to try to remember this particular verse and you can't do it, just leave you some blanks in there and then spend the week just having to fill in the blanks. But I'm telling you, by the time you get done, at the end of the week, you're going to know the verse. If a man vows a vow. Okay. Well, by way of test preparation for segment number 2, you are going to have a question. Actually, you're going to have 2 of them. The first one is, a vow requires a man to do all that proceeds from his what? Mouth. So if you say it, you got to keep it. And then can you quote the memory verse? Those are the 2 things that you're going to have to know for this segment in order to do well on your final test. If a man vows a vow to the Lord. I can really do good stuff with that. I think I can make a song. All right, here we go, Lollipop Man. Why do scuba divers fall backwards into the water? Have you ever noticed that? I always thought that was a little bit odd. They get their scuba stuff, let's say the water's bad. They get scuba, it's in their mouth, and they flip backward, and their little flippers go up, you know, and down into the water they go. I just thought, why is that? When I swim, don't you dive in? You know what I'm saying? Why do scuba divers fall backwards into the water? I'll tell you why. Because if they fell forward, they'd still be in the boat. It didn't really answer the question, but it is funny, isn't it? If he goes this way, he just hits his head in the bottom of the boat. Oh, that's so funny. I'm still laughing over here. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, segment number 3. In the 3rd segment, we're going to ponder a passage. And in this ponderation of the passage, we're going to take a part of the passage and we're going to ponderate on it. Here we go. In chapter 30, verses 3 through 5, we find this idea. If a woman vows a vow to the Lord and binds herself by a pledge while within her father's house in her youth. So we're talking about a girl, right? Because she still lives in her dad's house. That's the first question. And she's still a youth. That's the second question. And her father hears of her vow, of her pledge by which she has bound herself and says nothing to her, then all her vows shall stand. So if the girl makes a vow, she makes a promise, dad hears it, he doesn't say anything about it, he just lets it stand, guess what? It stands. She got to keep that vow. And every pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. But, verse 5, if her father opposes her on the day that he hears that vow, no vow of hers, no pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. So it is possible for a dad to come in and say, oh, honey, I don't think, no, you can't make that kind of promise because you're too young to keep that kind of promise, or you don't have the ability to keep that. And so dad can override her promise. He can come in and he can say, no, you're not going to keep that promise. And the Lord shall forgive her because her father opposed her. Meaning that evidently there are some promises that you can make to the Lord that are not appropriate because you're too young to make those promises. You can't keep that promise. And so it's up to your dad, specifically in this case, it's up to your dad to listen in, to consider what you've said, and if necessary, to override that promise because you're too young. You can't keep that promise. That's what dads are for. They're there to look out for us. All right, so here's your 5 questions with regards to that part of the passage. In our context, where is the woman living when she makes a vow? At home. In our context, how old is the woman? She's a young woman. I notice I forgot to put a question mark on that one. Can you believe it? What happens to the vow if her father says nothing? It stands. She's got to keep it. What happens to the vow if her father opposes it? It doesn't stand. He nullifies it. And why will the Lord forgive her? Because her dad stepped in and said, no, this isn't a vow that's appropriate. All right. Here's my silly rotating. What do you call that when you go round and round? Rotating. That's it. Why does an Eskimo keep his house? No, Sonny, you need to learn to read better. You pray for me, will you? How does an Eskimo keep his house from collapsing? Very good question. How do you keep your house from collapsing if you're an Eskimo? How does an Eskimo keep his house from collapsing? Igloos it. An igloo, you know, those houses that they igloos it. Sounds like I'm saying he glues it, but I'm saying igloos it. Did you get it? Are you with me? Oh, there I already did. Oh, well, I don't know why it didn't move on, but it didn't. All right, here we go. Apply the why doing. This is where we take that same passage and we say, okay, you know, I really relate to that little spot right there. And here's the spot that I related to. Down here at the bottom, it says, but if her father opposes her on the day that he hears it, no vow of hers, no pledge by which she has bound herself shall stand. So dad can come in and he can say, no, that we're not going to keep that vow. We're not, you can't make that vow, sweetheart. My question for you, Moses is actually asking it over here. Have you ever made a promise that your parents had to correct? I have. When I was a young man in high school, it was my senior year, and I was very, very busy. And I not only was busy with all the stuff you do during your senior year, trying to make good grades and, you know, and all that kind of stuff, played basketball, sport. I just busy. But on top of all that, I was preaching 2 times a week. And I got to a point where my brain just couldn't handle everything. And I had preached my Sunday morning sermon, and I came home and I said, Dad, I'm just brain dead. I don't have a thing to preach tonight. And he could tell I was stressed and I was worried and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to let those people down because I'd made them a promise that I'd show up every Sunday morning and Sunday night, and I'd preach them a lesson. But I didn't have anything. My dad said, I'll take care of it. So he went out that evening and he preached for me. And then after it was over, he told the folks, I'm sorry, but my son's not going to be able to keep his promise to you and be able to continue to preach here throughout the rest of the year because it's his senior year and he's overwhelmed. My dad stepped in for me. Have you ever had a situation where your parents had to step in and say, you know what, you've made too big a commitment here. You're not going to be able to keep that one. That ever happened to you? Well, write me a short paragraph about it, because as you'll see here in this frame, segment number 4, the question I've got for you is, have you ever made a promise that your parents had to correct? And my little statement over here is, just a short answer is fine. I don't need you to write me an entire encyclopedia. Here's Big Tooth Bob or Big Tooth Billy. I don't know what we call him. What do you call a sick eagle? That's sad, actually. Any animal that gets sick is sad. Any man or woman or child that gets sick is sad. But what do you call a sick eagle? Well, a sick eagle is called illegal. Because the eagle is ill. It's illegal. Oh, jokes this time haven't been too bad. Oh, my. All right, well, that brings us to old Frank. Oh, fearful Frank, he pops up here and he says, oh dear, it's time to test. Oh dear, I should have been paying attention. Yes, Frank, you should have, but I know everybody else has, so we're just going to go ahead and put all the questions right up here in front of us. There they be, my friends. There's your final test right there before you. All you got to do is look at it. Can you answer those questions? I bet you can. I really bet you can. You know why I bet you can? Because you're so smart. You're so cotton picking smart. I love you guys. Thanks for being with me. This is Sonny Chow saying to you, be there. Matthew 16:26.